Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back. Today's Daf Yomi is Maseches BECHOROS Daf Chaf. We are holding at the fifth line off the top of the Amud. Tanu Rabban, a brisa, which will relate back to yesterday's discussion. This fellow purchased a goat or a sheep from a guy. It didn't come along with a medical file with exact data in terms of whether or not the goat, sheep, had already given birth. Okay, then this Yid walks behind to his barn, Mazel Tov, a new arrival. Okay, is it the first? In which case it's a Bechor, shipped to the Kohen, or is it the second time around? He's not sure. So how do we determine? Tanu Rabban, Eis Bashnasas. We have one Shita. The Shita of Rabbi Yishmael, discussed back in the Mishnah already, that it's all about timing. So age is a very precise parameter in determining whether this offspring, this new arrival, is in fact a Bechor. Because there's a minimum age before which you assume the animal hadn't given birth. So if it's still within a year, its birth, before its first birthday, and it's giving birth, we can assume that this in fact is the first one. That's Rabbi Shmuel's opinion. By a goat, it's 1 year old. By a sheep, it's 2 years old, etc. So you have a goat, Bas Shnasa, still within the first year of her birth, prior to first birthday, Vatal Kain. Any birth at that point certainly belongs to the Kain, it's certainly a Bechor. But past that point, well, we don't know. Maybe it's her second time. Mikan v'lahalan sofek. Similarly, by the Rachel, Bashtayim, if she's up until 2 years old, Vatal Kain, any arrival is considered a first and a Bechor to the Kain, Mikan v'lahalan sofek. Past that point, we don't know. And you know how we treat a suffix, where we had it back in the Mishnah, we had it a couple of times already. The owner holds on to it and treats it with special status. He has to wait until it gets a mum, then only then can he consume it. Okay, so Rachel Bashtayim, Badaim, L'Koyin, Kan Mahal and Safik. Para Bas Shalosh, by a cow, it's up until 3 years old, Badaim L'Koyin. Any birth until that point is certainly going to the Koyin, Kan Mahal and Safik. Past that point, don't know. Chamura Kapara, a donkey is like a cow, Rabbi Zbidaimer. A donkey gets another year. Chamura Bas Arba Shanim. So the Chamura, up until the fourth birthday, Atkan de Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, so all this is Rabbi Shmuel speaking, who works with a very standard, formula. It's all about age. However, we have an opposing Shita, which was already discussed in the Mishnah as well, but now we're going to have a total of 4 Shitas on this matter. When these, numbers were presented Lifnei Rabbi Yeshua, Amar Lahansi tells them, go tell Rabbi Shmuel, there's a big mistake. It's Imrele Rabbi Shmuel, tell Rabbi Shmuel Ta'isa, you've erred. Why? Ilu bevlad, if it's only with a proper offspring, bevlad, if only that would do the trick, a behemoth of terrorists would exempt the behemoth from any subsequent bechor, meaning if you need a real birth on her record to exempt her from any future bechor, then you're right. I would agree with what you're saying, that at this young age, it's certainly her first. Right? To say that she squeezed in 2 proper births within a year, we don't say that. But it's not so. It isn't necessarily dependent upon a proper birth. Ela amru, but we know the Chachamim tell us that even a discharge, even a miscarriage, even some sort of semi-birth on her record is considered like the first birth, in which case any subsequent births are not considered firsts. Ela amru siman havla b'behema daka. What's a siman of birth? Halachic birth by a light animal. Tinuf, a discharge of some sort of clump of something which resembles an offspring, and that's considered her first. Past which is no longer. Uvagasa by a heavy animal, shilya, embryonic sac. Ubeisha by a woman. Regarding her halacha is shvira v'shilya. Shvira is some somewhat formed fetus, Shilya, is again, the sac. These are already indicators. In which case, just because she's still very tender and young, and this is her first proper birth, but it could be this was preceded by some sort of other discharge, which that's it. It's considered that first, and now it's all over. Okay, so that's Rabbi Shaw's response, quoting from his Rabbeim, from his teachers, Amr, right? But Rabbi Shaw himself would like to add another aspect. He says, Vani eini omer kain. So Rashi explains his response up until now was from his teachers. But now he's adding another element reflecting his own opinion, which is very similar, just a slight technical difference in terms of timing, as we're going to see later in the Gemara. But substantively, there isn't much of a difference in terms of responding to Rishmoel. You can't determine based on age only. You still don't know. Maybe it's her second experience. Vani eini omer kain. I disagree slightly. Ella, rather, I hold eis shetinfa b'shisha. Suppose the A's experienced this tinuf, this discharge, while already past 6 months, so it's the first day of her 7th. She could even give properly birth within the first year, even though it's such a short time, you can still squeeze it in. Likewise, a Rachel, which had tinuf within the first year. So if she had a tinuf, when she was already a year old, within the year, it doesn't preclude her giving birth within the next little while. Okay, we'll see later exactly what he had in mind. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Here comes the third sheet. Rabbi Akiva, which was actually said in the Mishnah as well. He says it's not about timing. It's not about age. You still never know anything. And therefore, unless you can confirm definitively that it's a first experience, other than that, we treat it as a suffix. Amar Rabbi Akiva, ani lo basi lemidazu. I haven't really adopted this age and timing formula. Ella, rather, it's like this. If you have confirmation that she had a proper birth, ein kan l'kohen klum. So the next one is not belonging to the kohen. So if you know there was a bichra, whether it's a proper birth or a tinuf, doesn't matter. The point is, so then it's no longer. Because if you have confirmed that there was no prior experience, hariz l'kohen. So this newborn, mazel tov, goes to the kohen. Suffix, if there's any uncertainty, you treat it as such. The owner eats it, the Yisrael eats it with him. Okay, so basically we have 4 opinions presented in the Brisa. To start, Rabbi Shmuel, it's age related. Okay, if she's still within the first year and she's giving birth, we assume it's the first. Rabbi Shua disagrees in the name of his teachers. He says no. Maybe it's the first proper birth, but it could have been preceded by some sort of semi-official birth, in which case it's no longer a bechor. Rabbi Shua himself adds to that with something to do with 6 months and a year. We'll see later exactly what he had in mind. He seems to learn that you can squeeze in 2 experiences within a shorter time. So even if the first tinuf experience occurred right past the 6-month mark, the first day of the 7th, you can still technically get in a proper birth within the year. So he shortens the gestation period. We'll see later what he had in mind. And then finally, Rabbi Akiva, he says nothing doing, unrelated to timing and age. Either you know or you don't know. But my kamiflagi Rabbi Shmuel, Rabbi Shua. So first, let's tackle the first 2 opinions. What's the point of dispute here? Rabbi Shmuel, who bases it on age, Rabbi Shua says no. We have to reckon with the tinuf possibility. So is that going to be the crux of the machlekes, whether tinuf is an exemption? Whether tinuf is considered a birthing experience, in which case the following birth is no longer bechor? Is that the machlekes? Lema b'tinuf kamiflagi, paita kamiflagi? Do we learn that the question revolves around whether tinuf can exempt? Rabbi Shmuel Savar Tinuf Ein Poiter. Rabbi Shmuel says no, only a proper birth, and it's her first within the year, in which case the Bechor. Rabbi Savar Tinuf Poiter. Rabbi Shmuel says that even Tinuf is considered somewhat of a birthing experience, in which case it exempts the following one. Is that the machlekes? No. All agree really Tinuf is a Poiter, if you know that it happened. Either Chazina on the Tinuf. If you have information that in fact there was a tinuf, the tanif, the tinuf poiter, all agree, that's certainly an exemption. The question is whether we have to speculate that there was tinuf. That's the machlekes. Unless you know, you don't have to speculate, and we assume this is a first birth, it's a bechor. Rabbi Shua says, yeah, it's a common thing, and we certainly can take that into consideration, and we can exempt this birth, assuming that it followed a tinuf. Asks the Gemara V'leichayish, you mean that according to Rishmal, we're not concerned about remote, unlikely possibilities, such as suspecting that there was a tinuf, even though for the most part animals don't do it. Really? He's not concerned about this type of concern? V'amar Rava, didn't Rava tell us yesterday that actually Rabbi Shmuel is of the opinion? He follows Reb Meir and Wochesh even for a miyut, even for an unlikely possibility. V'amar Rava, didn't Rava tell us machvarta, the correct approach is in fact that Rabbi Shmuel is Reb Meir Svirle, he goes like Reb Meir, the Chayish Lamiyut is concerned about even small percentages. And that was regarding yesterday's discussion. So Rabbi Shmuel had pegged it at a year, right? So if it's within the first year of birth, this goat is birthing. We assume it's her first experience, and in fact the offspring is a bechor. But past that point, we just don't know. Maybe it's her first time, maybe it's not. Even though for the most part animals would have been past their first birth once they hit the first birthday. So Roiv dictates that it's now her second. Right? If she's birthing after the first birthday, it's her second time. Still, Rabbi Shmuel was not sure, because V'cheshish Lamiyut, even for an unlikely scenario, V'cheshish like Reb Meir, small percentages. In which case, you can't just keep the animal as yours, you have to treat it like a suffix. He's going l'chumra because of the concern of the unlikely scenario. Okay, in any case, Rabbi Shmuel clearly is concerned about unlikely scenarios, so why not the same over here? Let's be concerned that perhaps there was already a tinuf, despite its unlikeliness, and this live offspring isn't necessarily a bechor. Says the Gemara, Ki chayish l'chumra. Yeah, Rabbi Shmuel is concerned about unlikeliness when it's going to generate a chumrah, like yesterday. This may really be her first birth, as unlikely as it is, at this advanced stage, and therefore treat it like a suffix. Ki chayish l'chumra, but l'kula, as opposed to our discussion today, where considering the unlikely would actually downgrade. Instead of this being her first, maybe it's not her first, because maybe it was preceded by a tinuf. That would downgrade, that would generate a leniency. Not to consider like a bechor. Like chayish. So here we're not chayish, meaning we can't reckon with unlikeliness, with remoteness to mitigate, to downgrade, to be lenient. Okay, so generally we go with Rive. But we'll go with a miyut if it generates a chumrah, but not to generate a kula. That would be Rishmoel's opinion. Hiba Esema, another approach is, bein l'kula, bein l'chumrah chayish. Rishmoel doesn't differentiate between whether it generates a kula or chumrah. Either way, we will reckon with the remote possibility. Okay, so back to our story. So it's the goat, young goat, giving birth. Rabbi Shmuel says, well, if she's still under a year old, we assume it's her first birth. Who says? Right? The question was, maybe there was a tinuf that preceded it, in which case it's no longer the first experience. Over here, the question here is, do we say it's possible that she's giving birth to a live offspring now and still theorize that it was preceded by a tinuf and it's all within the same year? Shall we squeeze in two experiences within the same year? That's the question. How likely is that? Rish Shmuel Savar, he says, no, it doesn't happen. Rish Shmuel Savar Metanefes, if in fact she already had a tinuf a couple of months back, she won't give birth properly within the year again. It's not going to happen again so soon. And this goat who just gave birth within the year, that confirms there certainly was no tinuf. This confirms that it's her first birth. No. It's possible. Just because she's birthing within the year doesn't mean she can have a tinuf experience before that. In which case, we can't assume that it's a bechor. We don't have to assume that it's a bechor. Okay, so that's the point of machlekes. She's within the first year, giving birth. Rabbi Shmuel, well, this is a first, absolute first. So it's Vadei Bechor. Rabbi Shua says no, who knows? Maybe there was a tinuf that preceded it. So this was between Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shua in the way he presented it from his teachers. Rabbi Shua himself went on to add another element of opinion, his reflecting his personal position, which charters a slightly different course. Same concept, concerned about tinuf, in which case it mitigates the status of this newborn, but he works with different numbers. He says it's possible to squeeze in two experiences even in a shorter span of time. That's what he's coming to add. My personal opinion is a bit different. Rather, it's like this. Ella, you see, his teachers presented that it's possible to give birth now. I was talking about this less than 1 year old goat. It's possible to give birth now, despite having had a tinuf sometime within the year. But how close to each other? Pretty far apart. Rishua adds, no, even closer than that. Even if she was metanef elaisha tinuf bas shisha, she had the tinuf experience while already 6 months old, so it was already the first day of the 7th month. Now we know from this discussion back in the Masechta that it takes 5 months for gestation, for birthing by a light animal. Nevertheless, Rishon maintains, despite this late tinuf, she can still squeeze in a proper birth within the year. She can still give birth to a proper offspring within the year. Rachel a Rachel was metanef within the year. Yoledet can still give birth within 2 years. Ma'ikab and Gemara l'svarei. What's the difference between Gemara, between the initial presentation from his teachers, l'svarei, to his personal presentation? Just a slight timing difference. So conceptually, they both agree. They're opposing Rabbi Shmuel, who considers it to be a Vadei Bechor. No, they disagree because perhaps it was preceded with a tinuf. But there's a slight technical difference between the two presentations in terms of proximity. We're speaking shatinfa b'tech shisha. So she did tinuf. Rashi learns b'seif shisha means past 6 months. So it's the first day of the 7th month of this first year. That's when tinuf took place. And Rabbi Shua's personal presentation relates to a scenario where she can still give birth before the year is over. So the last day of that year, she can still squeeze it in, despite being so close to that tinuf experience. Whereas his teachers disagree. That's too close to each other. It's impossible for the tinuf and the leda to happen so close to each other. What's the point of machlekes? Machlekes revolves around Zeiri's statement, who told us that once tinuf takes place, she's locked out for 30 days. She doesn't mate for 30 days. once she has the tinuf, it lasts for 30 days. She's locked down. She's not going to mate for 30 days. So you have to reckon that into the calculation. The Gemara is like the ziri. So the first version of Rabbi Shua from his teachers adopts ziri's formula. But l'svarei less like the ziri, his own personal position is not like ziri. Rashi explains as follows. And therefore, even the tinuf took place so late in the game, first day of the 7th month. So with ziri, she's locked out for 30 days. That takes us into the first day of the 8th month. Okay, give her 5 months of gestation. It's already first day into the 2nd year. It's too late. But Rabbi Shua himself doesn't hold of ziri. It's possible that she'll mate within a short time to the tinuf, in which case it's still possible that she can give birth within the first year. So basically, if you have this proper birth taking place on the last day of that first year, according to the teacher version, that confirms that the tinuf way back at the 6-month mark was not really a valid tinuf, it's just a discharge of some sort of waste material. And it's not reckoned like a birthing experience, because otherwise she would not have been able to carry and birth so quickly. So that confirms that in fact it's a bechor. Whereas Rabbi Shua himself disagrees. He says it's possible to squeeze it both in. So even though it was a valid tinuf, which gives it a halachic standing as a birth, nevertheless she can still birth a proper birth within the year, because she's not locked out for 30 days. She can mate soon and have the offspring 5 months later. In which case, it's not going to be a bechor because it's following a tinuf. So the Gemara is like the ziri. His teachers went with the ziri's formula. You have to reckon for those 30 days. The svarei, less like the ziri. His own personal opinion was without ziri. But same another way to learn. The kuliyam is like the ziri. All hold of ziri's lockout period. The question is whether an animal will give birth to incomplete months, or do we need full, 5 times 30 days? That's the machlekes. L'gmarei le'amrina. We turn to Talmud Bavli. L'gmarei le'amrina lezim katoin. His teachers did not hold of this partial, month reckoning system. In which case, if the tinuf would occur so late in the game, there wouldn't be enough time to birth within the year. Right, like we explained, right? You need full months. The earliest would be the first day of the 2nd year, and now it's not there yet. We're still at the end of the 1st year. Apparently, the first, tinuf was not a proper tinuf, and this is really a bechor l'svarei. But Reb Shua's personal position is, Amrina, we do work with a partial month system. Yilezim katoin. She can give birth at the beginning of the last month or whatever, so it's not necessarily full months. In which case, even though she's giving birth so early in the game, it can very well have followed a proper tinuf, and she conceived and is carrying so quickly and birthing quickly. People always say with other approaches, all agree you don't work with incomplete months. But the question is, do we say that once you hit a day, once you experience part of the day, already the morning is already considered like you have the whole day? Do you work with partial day being reckoned like a full day? Because you already have that day experience, even without experiencing the full day. And that buys you some extra time. Allows you to squeeze in more because, let's say, if the tinuf happened on a given day way back at the end of the 6 months, that same day could already be calculated into the first day of the 30 day lockout period, in which case you're getting yourself a day, and she can still squeeze in a proper birth before the year's end. L'svarei amrinan miktsas hem kikuler. Risho's personal position is we do apply this rule. Once you've experienced part of the day, it's like you have the day, and that can be calculated. L'gmarei lo amrinan miktsas hem kikuler. According to the teachers, you don't reckon with this formula when it comes to these issues, and you need full days. So whenever the tinuf happened, that day is out. 30-day count starts from the next day, which leaves you short. In which case, at the earliest, she can only birth at the beginning of the next year, and here it's a mazel tov at the end of the year. Apparently, that tinuf was not proper tinuf. Okay, so it's basically three variations of a timing question, but conceptually all agree that there is a concern about tinuf, in which case even if she's young and tender and giving birth so early in the game, perhaps it's palorei tinuf, which is considered like a birthing experience. And subsequently, it's the subsequent birth is not a bechor, so we have to deal with it like a suffix, as opposed to Rabbi Shmuel, who worked with just a time frame formula that if she's birthing within a year, we know it's her first. Why? Because if they were certainly a tinuf, then even he would agree that the next experience is no longer bechor, but he holds that apparently there was no tinuf because look, she's birthing. She wouldn't be birthing so quickly within the year if there was a tinuf. That proves that there was no tinuf. That's one way to learn. Another way to learn is that since a tinuf is an unlikely type of situation, we're not going to reckon with it in order to apply a leniency. Okay, so we've explained the machlokes between Rabbi Shmuel, who's age, time-based, and Rabbi Shua takes issue with that. Now we have yet another shita, which brings us to the fourth opinion in the Brisa. Right? We discussed the two variations of Rishua and the differences therein. Now we have a difference between Rishua and Rabbi Kiva. Now, on the face of things, it sounds like they're saying the same thing. Both took issue with Rabbi Shmuel's age-related formula. So what is the machlekes between Rabbi Shua and Rabbi Kiva? I'm not working with these age formulas. It's all about confirmation. If you know this is a first, fine. Otherwise, it's a suffix. Which seems to be exactly what Rabbi Shua is saying. My Ikam and Rabbi Kiva Rabbi Shua, what's the difference between their opinions? As follows. There's a slight difference here. Cholav Paiter. Ikam. So you have this goat, young and tender, hasn't yet reached her first birthday, and she's already milking. She's nursing. She has milk, which is typically only something which happens once the animal gives birth. But sometimes it can happen independent of birth, in a small percentage of cases. So we have a goat which is exhibiting milk. That will be the difference between these two positions. Is that a confirmation of birth or not? Rekiva Savar, Chalav Paiter. According to Rekiva, once there is milk, she's exempt. Any future births are considered non-bechor, because the milk confirms that she already gave birth. Halei follow the majority of animals who only have milk once they birth. Most animals only have milk once they give birth. So it's a confirmation. We have some minority of situations where they will have milk without giving birth. So you don't know. You can't use it as absolute confirmation. Says the Gemara, is it so that according to Bishop concerned about remote, unlikely situations? But now we have a Mishnah which indicates otherwise. Rabbi Shua is fully comfortable with the Roiv formula. So we have a couple leaving town, and while away, the husband passed away childless. His wife requires Yibam. The thing is, when they left town, there was no known brother-in-law to speak of. But she had a mother-in-law. She had a mother-in-law. Shall we be concerned that perhaps while they were away, she birthed a son, in which case the widow is now committed to waiting for the son to do Yibum? No concern. Not concerned that perhaps there was a son that arrived, but Yatsa Malaya, if when the couple left, when this woman left, the mother-in-law was Malaya, was carrying, was expectant, now she has to address that concern before carrying on with her life and remarrying. Rabbi Shua disagrees. Even in this case, no concern. Why? I mean, in my time, Rabbi Shua, what's Rabbi Shua based on? Because he looks at percentages. He says, look, most likely there is no yavam to speak of. Let's break it down into numbers. Yeah, it's true, most women who are expecting give birth. Okay, that's a fact. It's a scientific fact. But, umid mapilis, in a small percentage of cases, there are miscarriages, unsuccessful births. So let's say, out of 100 situations, 20% are failed. Okay. In which case, it doesn't present a yivam concern, right? Now, even within the 80%, it's 50-50, male and female. And only a male presents a concern. So, if you reckon together the 40% of female with the 20% of failed, you have a majority which releases this woman from her yivam status. Most likely, there's no yavam awaiting her. And all that do give birth, half are male, or connect, add the small percentage of the failed births, which is a non-factor for this woman, to 50% of the proper births, which are female, in which case the males are left in the dark. The chances of a healthy male are remote. Not concerned about a miyut. So clearly Rabbi Shua takes the rove and runs with it. So back to our story, we have the young goat giving birth within the year, but she had already been producing milk prior to that. Rabbi Kiva says, it certainly confirms that she already gave birth in the past. Rabbi Shua says, no, maybe not. Why? The rove says that milk is generated by birthing, is connected to birthing. You're right, Ela Eifach. We have to switch around the positions. That it's Rabbi Shua who runs with the rove. If there's milk, there's birthing. Whereas Rabbi Kiva says not necessarily so. We have to worry about a miyut. So it's still the same point of discussion, but we switch around the positions so that Rabbi Shua is in line, is consistent with the Mishnah by the Yivam, where he's based on rove. Vatani, in fact, we have a brisa which supports this new version. Chalav, if the young goat is exhibiting milk, paita, that exempts her, because that's a sign of having given birth. The very Rabbi Shua, because rove dictates that there was a birth. No, chalav is not necessarily a telling sign, because in some cases you have milk without birthing, so you have to take that into consideration. Okay, let's leave less rest for tomorrow. Hashem. In conclusion, we have this young goat giving birth. Is it a first? Is it a second? We don't have her medical file. We don't have her history. What do? We have 4 opinions according to Bishmal. It's all age-based. Within a year, it's certainly her first. We're not concerned about tinuf. And according to one pshat, even if there was, even if we are concerned in general, but since there's a leda within the year, that discounts any tinuf possibility because it wouldn't have happened so close to each other. So basically, according to Bishul, we're not concerned about tinuf, either because it's not a common occurrence, or because the healthy birth within the first year confirmed that there was no prior experience within the year. Rabbi Shua takes issue, says no, it could very well have followed a tinuf, and according to his position, you can even squeeze in the tinuf very close to the leda, closer than his teacher's version of events. According to Rabbi Kiva, he says even if this young goat is already milking, it doesn't necessarily say anything. Chalav enoi poiter, because perhaps she's the lucky one that had milk even prior to giving birth. But in concept, he agrees with Rabbi Shua's position that unlike Rabbi Shmuel, it's age-based. There are other factors at play. There's tinuf at play, and therefore, the only way it's going to be a bechor is if you have absolute confirmation. Otherwise, it's going to be a suffix. Okay? All the best to you, and that's l'chara.